How's it, Hal?
Ravi,
Robbie?
welcome. And welcome to anyone joining us over on the YouTube simulcast. We have just launched the stream over there. So, welcome everybody. Happy Wednesday. Bob, it's great to see you. Welcome. We're going to get started in just a minute here, folks. Rosalind, welcome. It's great to see you. Awesome. We have opened up the room just a minute early, as is customary, to give everyone a chance to trickle in, get settled. But I see it is now noon Eastern on the hour, so we'll be firing things up just momentarily here. Welcome, Fred. It's great to see you. I hope everybody's having a great week thus far. Obviously, we missed you on Monday. We have that new federal holiday of Juneteenth. So obviously, markets were closed, banks were closed. We were out of the office for a bit there, but it's great to be back. It's great to have everyone here. We're going to orient you where we're at with the markets in just a sec here. So one more quick shout out. Anybody joining us over on YouTube, welcome. Awesome. So let's fire things up here. So welcome everybody to Ninjacators' new weekly live event called Profits at Noon. We are live 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, all at noon Eastern time. My name is Nate, co-hosting these sessions with our very own Richard Krugel. We're going to pass things over to him in just a minute, but I'll give you a quick description of what the goal here for our sessions is. If you're new to these sessions, basically what we're going to do is we're going to walk you through a detailed analysis across 6 of our favorite futures markets, and we're going to show you levels and trades that we are stalking for entry. So we're going to steer you clear of any market traps, news bombs that could be waiting, all while highlighting these opportunities. And the best part is you get to stay with us, see all of this analysis play out in action, and of course, we encourage you to join us for the follow-up sessions. But again, the goal here to give you actionable analysis, actionable stuff you can follow along with us, stalk with us, possible setups, and even more. So in addition to that, what we call our levels to lock, we are working on our levels to lock newsletter for you guys and gals, so we hope to be rolling that out soon. Howdy from Fort Worth, I see, Rosalind. That's excellent. I'm down here in South Florida. Awesome. So we're going to get started here in just a sec. Richard, I'm going to bring you in, sir, if you're ready to lead for today's analysis. And I'll just quickly note, if anyone has any questions throughout the session, please feel free to fire away in the chat. We'll be happy to take care of that before we head out here today. But without further ado, Mr. Richard, sir, would you take the reins?
Thanks so much, Nathan. And hello, everyone. Thanks for attending. I see quite a few new names here. That's really good to see. Just a quick mention from my side. I'm not feeling too great. Got a bit of a chest cold going on. So if I do cough up a lung, I do apologize. But I'll definitely try not to. Yeah, so as always, we'll be going through the markets that we cover using my analysis techniques, mostly market geometry, bit of pattern analysis, wave counts, as well as our levels to lock. But before we do that, just note that all information in today's session is provided for educational purposes only, and it's not an offer or recommendation to trade futures, stocks, options, or Forex. Right. You just close off that screen. I'm going to disappear off camera for a while. I'll be back again when we do the Q&A. Again, you guys, if you've got any questions during these sessions, please feel free to ask, and Nathan will surely relay them to me. All right, first up, the ES. So we're going to look at the NQ, the YM, Russell, gold, and lastly, crude oil. And since we left you folks last week, I think, what was this, Friday? That's right, on the 16th. We were actually doing a session on the Thursday, not on the Friday, but a day later, price actually peaked, and we start getting this decline on the ES. Remember, we've been saying for a while that we are expecting some of a deeper correction. The only thing that I still think has changed here in my outlook is that I mentioned if this was a fifth wave that we've been tracking to the upside. Remember, we've been tracking this move to the upside since the beginning when we actually started profits at noon, and we've been labeling as price progressed and moved its way to the upside. Then what was at the beginning of May, we were looking at an expanding triangle, and we had a nice strong move back upwards. Now, the only thing that has changed in my mind is that if this was going to be a fifth wave, then one would have expected, you know, something like that, and then get a deeper correction, right? This is a very, very extended move to the upside or sequence. So I did mention this last week. I probably have to start thinking about changing this count a little bit. And the alternative count is still bullish and actually very bullish for the near future, if that makes sense. Still thinking this was potentially a wave 1 that moved higher as a leading diagonal. Wave 2 failed to make a new low, higher low, price moved higher. Then this still being a triangle, but instead of this being a 3, I'm going to move this 3 up here. If this makes sense, just bear with me. All right. Now, and what I mean by that is if this is a third wave, it's just subdividing in 5 waves in its own. Now, this could be the end of the third wave, or a third wave might still make a new high. We won't know that as just yet. But just to keep you guys in the loop with things here, it is, and I think the sequence to the upside is progressing as a real strong uptrend. So I'll look at some Fibonacci extensions here, some basic Elliott wave analysis soon. But if this is a third wave, and let's say price does indeed start moving lower, I'm going to be treating this as a fourth wave correction, then a fifth wave at a later stage. All right. So I'm not saying this is a third wave. I'm just saying that this sequence now is subdividing in fifth waves, and don't think it's actually done moving to the upside. And that'll be 5 waves from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that should actually be wrong. Then this should be your third wave, then a fourth wave, and then a fifth wave at that stage, if that makes sense. So this subdividing in 5 waves, so 3, then a decline, and then a fifth wave to the upside. That's my thinking. So something that's really interesting here, if you use a fib extension and you measure from the start of what I still think was a wave 2 to the high there, this actually being the high, not these highs here, because this was expanding triangle, and you move it to here. During our session, we were calling that we might see a low. Where did the price just reach? The 161.8 fib extension level, which is typically an area where a third wave ends in a sequence. All right. So if this was a 1, a 2. Now let me just get rid of this because the chart's going to get very cluttered. And now let me do this before we look at the levels to lock today. Then this decline here, and I should actually label this with intermediate waves. All right, but I'll do that at a later stage for you guys. Then we could see a pullback towards a 38.2. Not necessarily, but that's typically an area that price does move back into, if this is indeed a fourth wave or still subdividing to the upside. In the end, what I'm saying is still super bullish on the ES, NASDAQ for that matter, as well as YM. We look at the Russell and all those other markets in just a sec. So whatever's happening here, I am seeing it or treating it as corrective in nature, if that makes sense. I'll probably for tomorrow's session just quickly go put on labels here and subdivide those internal waves a little bit better. All right, so a little bit earlier on, we had Fed Chair Powell that testified, and he was saying that there are probably going to be more rate hikes, because the inflation still remains stubbornly high. So markets didn't really like that much. Price moved lower, but probably just a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction, to be dead honest. We probably all knew that they're still going to do this. Whatever the case might be, price has moved lower. It's opened above today's pivot point that was at, what still is, sorry, 4,430. It reached S1 at 4,410. Sorry, I can't see that label nicely. And on the current candle, price did pip a little bit below today's S1 and it's currently trying to make its move higher. So if we do see a further decline here, then potentially the next area where price might find support is today's projected range low, whether it's reached today or tomorrow, or today's S2, around 4,390 to around 4,393. That also puts us here in line with this median line that's sloping to the upside. So that could potentially be an area to watch out for support. But also being said, price might just do something like this and later reach another area, and then we see a move back upwards, or just from here. So I'm still thinking maybe still some more downside potential here, but just keep in mind that I am reading or thinking that this is just a correction in a very strong bullish trend to the upside. All right, same thing with the NQ, also peaked out last week. Strong move to the downside. This here does look a little bit more like a zigzag to me, a zigzag behavior. Sorry, let me just open that a little bit. We've had price actually reach a upper warning line, moved below an upper median line, retested it, couldn't get above it, moved lower, and it's now reached another warning line, and looks like it's bouncing it from there a little bit. So price declined below today's pivot point at 15,227, reached S1 at 15,143 on the current candle. Actually, well, previous candle closed below it, and we have a bit of a confluence between today's projected range low and S2 around about 1504, 15044, somewhere around there. So this might also be an area of support for the NQ. So what would it look like if you start seeing or think that declines potentially ended? Well, we'll need to start seeing price moving high again, potentially switch to a lower time frame, maybe a 60-minute or a 30-minute time frame or something like that. And you want to start seeing a 5-wave sequence build its way up to start getting a better idea, and maybe a little bit earlier on rather than waiting for price obviously breaking a previous high, to start and judge whether a correction has indeed ended. So same thing here on the NQ, treating this decline as corrective in nature, and still thinking that price could make or move towards new highs pretty soon, perhaps. All right, that brings me to the YM. Same thing, same date last week. Price topped here on the YM, moved lower. We also have a pitchfork that's been sloping to the upside here. And for some time, I've actually made that change a little while back. This after this double zigzag that I've been tracking, and I mentioned in the room that we were tracking, that completed around about the end of May, and price also reached a 61.8 Fib retracement level, and it was taken from these lows in mid-March to this high around the end of April. Retracement, in my opinion, which was a double XY, what we call a double zigzag into the 61.8, and then we start seeing this impulsive behavior to the upside again. All right, so this move we've seen here could potentially have been a 1, a 2, and then this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, maybe a 4th wave correction now, and then another move back up again. So also still bullish on the YM, also treating this decline as corrective in nature. Bit of a stronger move lower than on the ES and on the NQ. I won't say stronger. NQ's also been pretty weak. Look at this drop that we've had here today already. But price nearly reached this median line. Previously, it almost acted as support. It just missed it by a pip, actually. Doesn't necessarily have to make a touch with it, but it could potentially still move towards it. And this might also be an area where strong support is going to potentially turn price around. All right. So S1's already been reached. That was at 34,165. Same thing here on the YM. Price has been below today's pivot point at, what's that, 34,360-ish, and moved lower, nearly touched it upper median lines, looking like price wants to make its way back up again. All right, so that's the YM. Next up, we have the Russell. And for those on you in this room, probably know that Russell's been in a very hectic, sort of messy sideways range for an extended period of time, from around mid-March till we finally had this breakout here in the beginning of this month. I was saying back then, if we do see a breakout out of here, that potentially, you know, show us which direction price wanted to move, and obviously change our direction, which was previously bearish, into potentially bullish. All right, so we did get a breakout of that area. We had a pullback, another move higher, and at that stage I drew in another pitchfork. Love using my pitchforks to find areas where you might find support and resistance. And I'm using this setting, and I believe this is the modified shift pitchfork, which is the same as a channel, just because of how price reacted to these lines previously. We had resistance step in here at that upper median line pullback. move higher. These red lines on the top here, that's part of the pitchforks called red warning lines. And although we had an overthrow there, we just drew a line parallel to that. And quite often you have another overthrow. Price will either find support or resistance, depending what direction you're looking at that same angle again, which is what we had. I think this was, when was this? On the 14th. 2 days later than on the ES and NQ. Russell topped and start seeing a decline. All right, so also cautiously bullish, I would say, on the Russell. Also a bit nicer sort of price action here than on the ES. The ES has just been straight down. I think the YM as well. The NQ gave us a bit of a zigzag, which makes me think that might just be a zigzag on the NQ and also now on the Russell. Potentially just a zigzag into this upper median line. Price being a little bit above today's pivot point, quickly moved towards this upper median line, which it tested earlier this week, and just reached today's S1 at 1,871.4. It's trying to make its way up again. So this quite often how I use these market geometry lines is, for example, to gauge that direction is, let's say the Russell closes on a 4-hour with a lot of momentum below one of these median lines, and they don't act as support in this case, because markets went from a bullish phase into, an area of support. Then, until price breaks below and close below that, it can almost give you a little bit more of confirmation that price might move towards the next area. So we've got to keep an eye on this. We'll obviously retouch or look at everything again tomorrow and see where the Russell's at. This might be a strong area of support for the Russell as well. Then this brings me to gold, and then we're going to look at crude oil finally. For those who are new in this room, we did track, I think, a 5-wave sequence in gold. We had a strong breakout below a channel that I've drawn and had on my chart for quite some time, actually just after this triangle formation that we also were following in the room. And they noted if we should get a break below this lower channel line, that we might have a decent sort of idea that we're going to see a deeper decline. That did happen. And then last week, the week before, we were tracking what I believed was a descending triangle. And I said, that we're potentially seeing something like this, an A, B, a C, a D, and an E, and that we potentially going to see a strong move to the downside, expecting support to step in and then give us a higher correction to the upside again. Now, instead of price moving much lower, it moved up again, right into the confines or into the area of where I said this descending triangle was, and we've seen another decline yet again to the downside. So I've got to start questioning whether this was actually indeed a descending triangle. So what I'm thinking here could potentially explain what this is. Instead is an ending diagonal of some sorts, where we might be seeing something like this, right, taking shape. And we might still see price drift a little bit lower and a little bit lower and lower, and then eventually get a move to the upside. If we do get a move to the upside, I'm not meaning that this ending diagonal is per se going to put gold into a new uptrend. What I am saying here is that it's just an ending diagonal of a first wave to the downside of a correction, with another move to the upside and then some more decline at a later stage. So I am bearish on gold over the long term, over the near term. Like I mentioned now, for probably a week or two, still expecting at some stage a higher bounce that could retrace a decent portion of this entire decline here. Right, so from our levels perspective, the price has been well below today's pivot point at 1952.5. Previous candle blasted down below S1 at 1936.4, nearly reached today's projected range low at 1927.3. And on this current candle, we're seeing price trying to bounce back to the upside again. So, yeah, cautiously bearish over the short term. I still think that we potentially going to get a move to the upside. I'm going to treat it as corrective. Then we could probably say bullish over the near term, but actually just a correction, in my opinion, to the upside rather than a new bullish continuation, if that makes sense. All right, it brings us to crude oil. And we've had these channels on crude oil also for quite some time. We've had previous areas where we identified support and resistance, etc., etc. But crude oils has sort of been knocked sideways here. Very erratic behavior. Definitely starting to think that if this is corrective, and I mean corrective against a bearish trend, that whatever this might be could still be a triangle of some sort, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm still a little bit of on the side here with crude oil. I still think that we can see more erratic behavior while price remains within this area over here. Now, if we're going to see a move to the upside, it fails again, and we see a move lower that fails to break. Well, I say fail here. Let's say fails to break above this area, and we have a move lower that fails to break above this area and find support again. Then I'm going to start entertaining the idea that this could be a very large triangle. But if that is the case, then potentially we've seen an A, B, silver zoo, C, D, and E, and it's just going to be a long drawn out affair and another decline lower at some stage. So yeah, it's still a bit early days to call this as a triangle, but while price stays within the confines of this pretty large range that it is in right now, who knows? It could just do something like the Russell did here and just continuously frustrate everyone unless you trading intraday. And you just see price bouncing up and down to the upper and lower limit of a range. Obviously, this time just looking at crude oil here. But from our levels to lock perspective, price opened above today's pivot point at 71. It just moved through today's R1 at 72.26. If this is some sort of, let's say, a triangle, then be careful that price could potentially find resistance at your 61.8 or 78.6. If it blasts through here and reaches these highs again, then something else is going on. It does look like price is gunning towards today's projected range high. That's located at 73.22, and just above that, be careful, we have that 78.6 retracement at 73.45, just in case price does find resistance. And if it does move lower from here, then I'm going to start thinking, yeah, potentially a triangle. All right, guys, so that really completes today's analysis. Trying to just fill you a bit in of what price has been doing since our last session. Again, we did not mention we're going to have a session on Monday, completely flew above our heads. I was actually working. But yeah, so we are back and we'll have another session tomorrow, obviously, again, and touch base again, see where the markets are at. All right.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, as always, Richard, for the detailed analysis, the valuable insights. We do, of course, want to make room for any questions you might have for us here today. That extends to anybody joining us here in Zoom, or whether you're over on the simulcast on YouTube. We absolutely welcome any questions you might have. And, of course, we're happy to take care of that before we head out the door here today. In addition to that, I do want to note, if you're new to these sessions, something else that we like to do is called our tool spotlights. That was initially slated for this Monday, as Richard mentioned. That holiday did surprise us. Some of us had forgotten. And so we were expecting to come in business as usual Monday, and that was not the case. So we will have our tool spotlight coming up next week. And so if anyone here has any, requests for a tool spotlight in the future, any of the Ninjacators Pro Series, things like that, what we do is we take that indicator or that tool suite, we break it out here in the session and use it live. Richard has created a lot of educational content surrounding these tools, so he knows them like the back of his hand. So he's able to really flex everything they're capable of, and also show you how to optimize these tools if you're perhaps already a user or you already own some of these tools. So all around, it's a very great, valuable resource that we like to make available. So any questions, any requests of that nature, feel free to fire away. Outside of that, we just want to put a couple things on your radar here before we head out. But it looks like Fred actually does have a request coming in for us, Richard, if you see that one.
I do see that. Fred's asking for me to go over the smart squeeze. Right. Fred, I do quite a lot of, how can we say, on-demand live trading videos. I've done that for 11 of the programs that we have at Ninjacators. I've not done the smart squeeze yet, but I'll be more than happy to look into that for you. That's definitely not a problem. And we can slate that for one of our next tool spotlights and keep you in the loop when we're going to do that. So I'm well prepared and give you some insights of what I think, how best to use the tool, or let's say how I would use the tool, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Fred, for submitting that in. It's one, as mentioned, we're both familiar. I don't think Richard's done any videos on it just yet, but that's no problem. We're, of course, happy to break it out here in the session. And that's a great follow-up question. Richard, if you remember off the top of your head the full list by chance of everything you've created content for thus far.
Yeah, let me just open my files. I've done 11 of them. We got the Elite Wave Pro. Let me just open my files. And these are all of them now. Elite Wave Pro. The E-mini Predictive Trader. We got Zorro Micropower Trader, the Volume Scalper Series, Price Pattern Trader, NASDAQ Quick Strike, Crude Oil Quick Strike, Momentum Zone Pro, and Level Touch Trader. I think those are the ones I've done thus far. That's 11 of them that I've done, but that's going to be on the back burner for just a short while. I think those were the most popular ones, and I've done 5 live trading sessions with each of those products, basically showing you how I trade them in live trading environments. And also very importantly, which many traders don't see that often, is that, I show you how I actually manage open positions. It's very easy getting into a trade with an ATM strategy, without an ATM strategy, whatever your case might be or your preference. And, not really knowing how to manage your open position is not something people talk about a lot. So I do follow a very specific trade management methodology. So, they're all in those videos over there. And if we do continue with some of the others, then I'm sure probably the smart squeeze will come up as one of them. So that will probably happen later this year, but I can't really tell you exactly when.
Excellent. And yeah, Fred, to answer your question, where they are currently, I believe it's all, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, within the members area, places like that, for users who have purchased the software, guides to be able to use them, trading guides, things like that. But I don't believe any of them are on YouTube.
No, they for members only, for each individual member that bought whatever one of these tools. But I don't know if Fred is familiar. Maybe you'll fill him in a little bit there, Nathan, with our new service where you have access to basically all the tools for one low monthly fee. So maybe you can tell him about that. That's something that's really cool that just launched a little while ago.
Sure, yeah.
For a very reasonable price, actually. And then you get access to all the tools available in the membership as a member, except for, I believe, that was Signal Trader and Robot Lab. So we don't include the Premier Lab, the Premier products, sorry, but we do for, I think, a one-time fee or monthly fee. You have access to basically all of them.
Excellent. And that is called our NinjaTraders Fast Track. So you may have seen some mention of it. I know there was recently a live event to roll that out. And so if I can find a link for you guys, I will happily share that here with you.
Yeah, Fred, I'm just reading your message there. I do agree. Sometimes you buy these things and you have absolutely no clue how to use them. That was one of the reasons I've done those on-demand live trading videos. Again, just showing you how I use these tools, right? So most of these videos have installation instructions, how to use them. It goes into all the settings, the default settings, All of those programs or software suites do include them. Some do include PDFs, especially like the Elliott Wave Pro. I've actually created some PDFs that went with it, some images for members. And then obviously, I think it's really worth gold that you can then actually go and see these tools in under real market conditions and see how someone else would trade them. So they are definitely included, especially in those ones that I've mentioned earlier.
Excellent. Well, yeah. I mean, Fred, we've seen that before as well. You buy some sort of complicated software or tool, and then you're kind of dumped into a
Yeah.
nondescript members area without many resources or a lifeline.
Mhm.
So basically, our goal is the complete opposite of that, to really equip you with everything you would need right out the gates, in addition to a robust support structure and team. But what I was able to find, I believe that link would just take you directly to the order form for it, but this was the Ninjacators Fast Track membership that Richard mentioned that was recently launched. And this is something, it's a subscription service that gives you access, as Richard mentioned, to a pool of all of these indicators and tools. So yeah, definitely check that out if that's something you're interested in. We do have on deck, we'll do the Smart Squeeze tool spotlight for you, Fred, coming up. We might even be able to bump that one to the top of the pile. And then I think outside of all of that, the only other thing we wanted to put on your radar here today was our Signal Trader Lab later this afternoon after market close. So if you have yet to attend any of our new Signal Trader Labs, or if you haven't heard any of the buzz, this would be a great place to check it out. Our very own Kyle Kinney will be there today giving a presentation.
Mhm.
So definitely encourage you to check that out. Join him after market close to see what all the fuss is about. It's basically the tagline. You may have heard it, the revolutionary way any trader can now use AI generated day trading signals to become consistently profitable without FOMO or fearing losses. So in addition to all the great material they'll be covering there for you, they're also giving away the free S&P 500 AI power signal for anybody that attends. So definitely check that out. I want to encourage you to get on that event. It is a very timely topic, so definitely check that out.
Nathan, just quickly before we go, I see that Harold did ask a question there. What is the R1, R2 on the chart?
Oh, sure.
So this is basically the run-of-the-mill standard indicator you get on most platforms. R1 is basically a resistance. You've got deviations of that R2, R3. And basically it's labeled as pivots here in your indicator list. All right. So if you do load that, I think you can go change the colors here. But traders often use them. I think they're based on the previous day's ranges to gauge where price might be moving towards. For example, let's say price moves or stays above a pivot point. So it's basically just support and resistance, right? Then if price were to move higher, one would expect it to reach R1. So it could then act as either target or as an area of resistance or so forth. But all trading platforms should have this. It's a very basic tool that we have on the chart, but some traders do use them to gauge where price might be moving towards. These other lines that you're probably also familiar with, I'm just mentioning it in case you're not. This is actually one of Ninjacators' proprietary indicators. So also support and resistance areas, but they are calculated using previous days' volatility. All right, so depending on how volatile the market's been on a previous day, it would calculate that entire day's volatility and then also give these projected range and then deviations to the upside or the downside. All right, and that's pretty much what it is.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm glad you caught that, Richard. Apologies, Hal, that I looked like I skipped right past that. So I do I'm sorry, Harold. I do apologize that I skipped right by that. So
No
glad we're
worries.
able
So,
to cover
Fred,
it here.
which ones are you referring to? R1, R2, or are you looking at the projected ranges? The normal pivots. Way different or just a little bit? Yeah. This is actually a thing to do with, I don't know where you're from, Fred. I'm here in South Africa. And to get my projected range, highs and lows to work, the proprietary indicator here from Ninjacators are in New York City. Awesome. Um, I had to change the, what do you call it? The session, yeah, in my data series so that they can be pulled in properly. So if you go to a smaller time frame, which I don't have open now, it'll actually show different times. You see how it's saying 11 a.m. there, right in the bottom here at the timestamp. So it does change a little bit depending on your time zone. And your case being in the US, I think everyone in the US should have similar sort of time zones. And I had to make that adjustment because if because Ninjacators picks up that I'm sitting in South Africa. I think they do somehow look at your computer settings, etc., when you actually set it up. That's as far as I understand it. But to get my projected ranges to work, we struggled for a while, and the only way we could get it to work was to, in the data series, change my time zone to a different time zone. And that did mess up a little bit of R1, R2, but it shouldn't be a massive difference, if that makes sense.
Right
Again, we're
on.
also just using these as guides, right? So we're not really, too worried about having them 100% right, if that makes sense.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, I hope that makes sense, Fred. Just a little deviation there, but definitely not the end of the world. If we had any more questions coming through, please feel free to fire away here in the chat. We'll be happy to take care of that as we head out the door here. And then we'll just quickly mention as well tomorrow, of course, we are back tomorrow, noon Eastern time, and we'll have some very special guests in the house for you tomorrow. So our friends from over at Equity Sciences will be in the house here tomorrow, our friends Robert and Brian, with a very special presentation that they're going to be showing you after we get through our levels to lock. So lots to look forward to here tomorrow, a very special session. We haven't had, it's been a few weeks since we've had a guest in the house, so we're very excited to have this guest presentation. I know they've been working very hard on this, and they're eager and excited to jump in here and share it with you. So if you're able to join us tomorrow, definitely encourage you to do so. Obviously, getting started again at noon Eastern time. Richard will hit those levels to lock with you. We'll probably do it in a quicker fashion than we normally do, and we'll hand the reins over to these guys at Equity Sciences for an excellent presentation that they have prepared. So lots to look forward to ahead. I don't see any more questions coming through just now, so I guess we'll go ahead and wrap in just a minute here. But if anything comes up after outside of these sessions, please feel free, go onto the website. We have a contact form. You can email us, support@ninjacators.com. There's a phone number plastered all over the website. So if anything comes up, please feel free to reach out. We're always happy to help. And then as mentioned, taking your requests for future tool spotlights. So anything on your mind there, feel free to share it. We'll be happy to get that on the docket for you. But all that said, it looks like we are clear to wrap here today. So thank you,
Cool.
everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Richard, as always, for the valuable insights and for your time. And
You're
thank you
welcome.
to all of our guests here in Zoom and over on YouTube as well. We really appreciate having you all here with us, and really hoping to see you here tomorrow at noon Eastern time, Thursday, for the final session of the week. As mentioned, our guests from Equity Sciences with a special presentation. So lots to look forward to there. So we will see you all again tomorrow. Thank you again, everybody, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, everyone. See you tomorrow. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.